Heidi Love in the house, dropping knowledge and facts, uncovering the truth, no need for acting lax. She ain't afraid to speak her mind, breaking through the lies, rising up with love, taking us to new highs. We're living in a world full of secrets and deceit, but Heidi's here to expose, bringing truth to the beast. She's got a message, spreading it far and wide, from addiction to hope. She's on the other side. Ooh, yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Unfiltered Rise with me, Heidi Love. And today I have John Kirwin with me. He is an author. He has been in ministry. He is a truther. And boy, is he going to tell us about this journey today. John, will you tell us a little bit about what you wrote, what it's called, where to find it? And I know all these answers, but it's better to hear it from you.
Nice. Very nice. I'm glad to be with you, Heidi. Looking forward to this. I know we have a lot in common. We're on the same track on so many fronts. It's pretty astonishing. The Christian truther we were just talking about in the pre-show is a different breed. There's a lot of folks that are waking up across the world and realizing that a lot of what we've been presented with is just not anything to do with reality. But when this happens to the truther, the Christian, it's a very different journey, because basically if you find Jesus or Jesus finds you, the world persecutes you. But if you're a Christian, you're a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ, and you find out the moon landing is fake and 9/11 was fake and everything's fake, the church persecutes you.
Yeah.
Many in the church are, as the unconvinced, or normies as we call them lovingly, more than anybody. And you're stuck in a very difficult place because you're not given many options as a truther, period. No. But if you're a Christian truther, you're looking at almost even more persecution, because there's a sort of a haughtiness or a Christianese expectation within the church to keep things status quo and not to color outside the lines. And that's part of the brainwashing. It's part of the matrix to keep you bewitched, is you don't question. And that's really the whole impetus of the book, is to really codify these two groups, which one is what we call the unconvinced, or they've named themselves normies. My daughter told me once, "Dad, I wish you were normal." So they've named themselves normies. So it's not really derogatory, but.
Well, we got to call them something for namesake anyways. We're not trying to be mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the presenting characteristic of this group is that they don't know and they don't want to know. And they'll tell you that. Right. But they definitely demonstrate it when you try to begin to enlighten them or bring evidence to these new discoveries you're making. They'll shut you down. They'll invoke terms like conspiracy theorist, kook, crazy, fringe. Those are all designed to silence you right then and there at the door. I call it self-censoring. So they don't want to examine your information, because then they would have to be accountable to it.
Well, and it disrupts their reality so badly that I feel like sometimes there are truly people out there. I work as a mental health nurse that cannot handle it. I mean, I watched this in 2020, and that is what woke me up, was 2020, because as a nurse, I was raised by a lot of people because I was a ward of the court. But my dad was very, I want to say he's very George Carlin-esque. And he was really this salty old guy that I was like, geez, what is wrong? And now I'm a salty old guy, but I'm not a man. And I'm like, the only difference is he wasn't quite sure how God fit in, but he knew there was one, but he wasn't sure how. And I get it. Like when you are, it's more acceptable to be him, where he was like, well, it's all crazy, but I don't know about God either. Like, that's fine. And people might give you some clout that way, right? We've got people that have made their whole everything on this. Like, oh, I'm this conspiracy person, but like, I don't bring God into it. Well, I'm sorry. For me, God chucked me in this fire, and I was like, whoa, what's happening? And like I mean, can you believe, like, I'm a nurse and this was happening to me during 2020? right? Like
Right?
that's not going over with the doctors and the people, and I'm fighting back, and I'm asthmatic like I shared, and I can't wear it all day because I literally can't breathe.
Right.
And so, these things are not this was we were already labeled because we are the only non-Mormons of the group. And I left and am an apostate, let alone, let's put in there that she doesn't want this new medicine and
Mm,
she's crazy. She's going to get everybody killed. And yeah, so there
mhm.
you go. Yeah, we
Indeed.
get just punished. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the shot was a wake-up call for a lot of people. It really brought a lot of
hmm
division too, a lot of division between families where people were told if you're not, you can't come and to my
hmm
wedding, or you
hmm
can't work. So people had to really, and it broke up a lot of families. But any specific, it only takes one conspiracy theory that you bite down on
Yes.
to break up your family. I've seen that. It
Yes.
doesn't have to
And
make
to
sense.
break your whole reality, right? Like you said in one of
Yeah.
your other shows, like I figured that out and then all the other stuff just came crashing down and then
Mhm.
you're really crazy, right?
No, I did do a talk. I've done about 50 of these interviews now. And
Okay.
what I noticed over time is that there was a direct correlation with the podcaster hosts. And the correlation was the more rabbit holes the podcaster was involved in or had gone down, the less resistance there was, because I'm down every rabbit hole. And
Same.
the more incapable they were of dealing with their unconvinced families. So it's like somebody on the Titanic and they're rearranging the deck chairs. It's totally inappropriate. Okay, because
Right.
we're accused of being obsessed, but my observation is if you're in a burning building, you're supposed to be obsessed.
Yeah.
So what happens is as you start to overturn these rocks, you find that there's a conspiracy under every rock, and your urgency increases exponentially while your loved ones are remaining the same. And at a certain point, I did a talk called Help, I Have More Than 10 Rabbit Holes in My Portfolio. And it becomes untenable. Now, you can try to coexist and observe their boundaries, or what I call shut up or else orders. And you can say nothing like I did for the last 2 years of being in my home with my wife, who finally asked me to leave. It doesn't matter, though, because you're branded. You have
Right.
been identified as a
You're
kook,
crazy. You're crazy now.
fringe nut
Yeah.
job that's destroying the family and is a threat to the children. And it's just
Yep.
very common. What caused me to write the book was the fact that initially I started posting these videos that I was making just to convince my wife that I wasn't crazy on my YouTube channel,
Right.
Wake Up or Else, right? And then I was getting hundreds. My first two videos got 150,000 views. Now they
Wow.
shadow ban us, so we don't get that many anymore. But we're responding, saying, "Oh yeah, John, my family doesn't talk to me. My kids don't talk to me. My spouse divorced me, or we're on the verge of divorce." What I realized was it's universally the same for all of
hmm
us. Now, there's varying
Yep.
degrees of how much pushback you're going to get, how well you handle the rejection, how much grace your spouse has. If they happen to be a truther, God bless you. You're one of the few. You're one of the lucky ones. But if your spouse is a normie, or your friends and family or church family is normied up, which is most people, you're walking a lonely road. Your
Yeah.
listeners, 100%, they're all nodding their heads right now. No question.
Yep. Yep. And tell people this is the guide, right? So tell everybody about this book and when you wrote it and
Right.
what it's called.
Right. The book is called The Conspiracy Theorist Survival Guide. It's a guidebook for persecuted truthers, and it's
Yes.
not to convince you, any moon landing is fake or anything. It's for people that already know the moon landing is fake or whatever
hmm
rabbit hole you're down. But the people that are important to you in your life don't believe it and don't want to know. So the first half of the book is Inside the Mind of Truthers, and then the second half is Inside the Mind of the Unconvinced. It's 300 pages, and
Right.
it will walk you through what makes you tick, what makes them tick. It is a personal development book. It's a guidebook. It's inspiration. It'll validate all your perceptions. If you read the reviews, people say they couldn't put it down. They're like, just laugh, cry. It's just so hard what we are. I mean, my family, and this is true, a lot of people, the whole family will circle the wagons against one truther.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so my wife, after 24 years of marriage, asked me to leave, and now my kids barely talk to me. And that's common.
That's so hard because for a different reason, like I mentioned, I have a child that has estranged from me. And when you are, especially where you come from, doing ministry, your life was dedicated to Christ. I'm certain you were a very dedicated family person.
Yeah.
And when you spend your whole life doing this and raising them up, right, in the ways that they should be, even I'm not saying I was perfect. I wasn't in ministry, and I was really my ways were not the same as they are now because I was engulfed in that religion, and it's just I have a lot of regret. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is I'm certain you spent a lot of time, effort, energy, your probably whole life focused on these children, and you wait for that payout, right? Like you always hear like one day they're going to understand you,
Yeah.
and then they didn't, right? So then we're like, wait a minute. What? Why? Yeah, right? Like all because we're thrust into something that I'm certain from your videos and discussions you didn't ask for, and neither did I. And I also felt like I was the least capable. Like this was not, I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. I don't even know how to run the computer that good. Like I'm just a mom and a nurse. And that's all, right? Like, and when this happens to you, and it happened not only for religion with us, it happened then again in 2020 with us. And we were already the crazy ones, over
Yes.
religion.
Yes, right.
So we were like tossed out all the way. And I mean, his family sees us. I feel like a good word to say is they tolerate us.
Yes.
And what do you do? There's nothing I can do to change their mind. But I did try for a time because I felt like this is a sinking boat and I want to save you because what I do by nature is save people. So I went completely wild trying to save everyone. Like, I want to save you, and I just looked insane. So,
Yeah. And we're guilty. I did a talk called The Sins of Conspiracy Theorists. And we didn't handle this very well, but it's very upending. I mean, it totally turns your world upside down. Imagine if you've watched The Truman Show. It's a Jim Carrey movie where he's actually in a reality show and he doesn't know it. And the whole town he lives in is a TV studio. And he starts to see the clues and eventually finds out that his whole world is fake. I want you to imagine in the movie if he then says, oh, well, what difference does it make? I still have to go to work, don't I? Because that's what the normies always tell us. It would be unthinkable for him to knowingly live a lie. Like, okay, well, I'm in this TV studio and the whole world watches me, but what difference does it make? I have to go to work. No, your work is a fake. It's everything. I'm not saying we're in a TV studio, but what we have uncovered is so breathtakingly, mind-bogglingly large and deceptive, and there's so many of them that we can't do life. I started telling my wife, I said, honey, I got off the bus. I can't clap for NASA. I can't do life like we've been doing it. And they can't
it's
relate.
too hard.
And they don't want to relate.
Yeah. You're stuck alone. And like even the people that you do somewhat trust, like maybe they aren't all the way in, right? Like maybe they only agree with like 3 things and they're not down where you're at, like you said.
Yeah.
And I'm like clear down to cabbage babies and orphan trains and crazy stuff, like crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm lost in the sauce over this whole big thing because I got thrown, like literally God said like to me, not literal, not his voice, but like I was imprinted upon to study, here's even worse, the occult, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, now I'm really feeling like, oh my gosh, maybe it is crazy. Like, this seems like a very bad idea. And people are like, oh my gosh, you can't read that and you can't do this. But I would have never found out all the things I found out and how it connected to Mormonism if I hadn't done it. But I was afraid. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I never wanted to read a book like that. You know what
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. It's so hard to explain it to people. But then when you do connect, which is why this podcast has been a blessing, an accidental blessing. I never was going to do a podcast. That's not on my trajectory ever,
Right.
ever. Um, and here we are. And then I get somebody that I'm like, he gets it. He knows. He knows. You know?
Well, I mentioned the presenting characteristic of the unconvinced is they don't know and they don't want to know. The presenting characteristic of the truther is that they have asked this question. Well, if that's not true, what else isn't true? I've heard hundreds of people say that. I've said it myself when I found out the Federal Reserve wasn't federal. That was my entry point into this difficult journey, where I saw the Federal Reserve was a white building in Washington, and it was put forward as a government entity. And then I realized, because I was day trading at that time, so I was in the financial markets, that this was actually owned by private banks that had nothing to do with the government. It's like Federal Express, right?
Right. It's just a name.
Private company. But they were all putting it forward like it was part of the government. And then I said, well, if that's not true, what else isn't true? That is the genesis of the truther journey. The genesis of the mind control, of the bewitchment breaking over you, is your ability and your willingness to begin to question officialdom. I don't know how they do it, Heidi, but they put this spell on us where we just won't question. We don't question.
Yep. And then if you do, and people are always like, well, I'm non-political. I am literally like I can't do it because we're stuck in this, but I would be an anarchist, like completely. Like I don't believe in government. Like, what does God say in the Bible? Like, let Caesar have what's Caesar's, right? And that's all I can like think about is like, this is, like you said, this is a system that we're trapped in. It's a spell, it's a lie, it's a lot of things, but it also is something that we have to have. Like, money is inherently necessary to live right now, right? And so here we are. But what I've done is make sure, one thing I learned about in the occult is figure out your intention and make sure that your intention is where it needs to be. B, I never pray to be wealthy, only well, because I want to have enough to survive and support my children and do these things. But also, I don't want this to be, I'm not trying to have a Ferrari. Like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I really, it's fine. You know, whatever's paid off and that I have, that's what I'm going to have. Because unless something happens, you know, like breaks.
Yeah.
No longer is my focus like, I wish I had this bigger house, or I want a pool, or whatever. It's just silly to me now, right? And that changes everything.
Right. Yes.
It's very difficult to be in a world that you're forced, like you said, you're forced, right? Like, no longer are you happy, Dad, but like, you have to be here. We all do. You know what I mean? Like, but you have to be able to be yourself sometimes. So I get why you took the stand.
Yeah, it's not your fault, truther. You know, once you see, you can't unsee. It's not your fault that God gave you the grace to open your eyes. And Jesus even talked about people that have eyes to see, but they see not. They see the same evidence that we see, but they can't perceive what's obvious from the evidence, that NASA is lying, or the chemtrails are not contrails, or whatever the thing is that you're seeing in front of your face. They see it and you see it, but you perceive what it really is, and their brains are shut off. Now, this is also a judgment. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, God speaks about sending a strong delusion on those who are willfully ignorant. And it's not just pertaining to the gospel. It's truth, period, because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus is the truth. Everything that's truthful has to do with Jesus. So that curse belongs to you if I show you that the earth is flat and you start getting mad at me and calling me crazy without looking at my evidence of why is it that I can see the Chicago skyline from the opposite shore of Lake Michigan. It should be obscured by 1,600 feet of curvature and I can see the entire building. Well, you're crazy. Okay, so you can see around corners? So you won't engage me in that debate. You will get angry and try to shut me down. That's willful ignorance. And because of that decision, God sends strong delusion on you. Because what the definition of truth is things that are factual. And then if you look up what factual means, it means things that are obvious. And so what's obvious is I can see the Chicago skyline, and it's 50 miles away. And what's obvious is that if it's 50 miles, there should be about 1,600 feet of curvature if the earth is round. And those are two things that are obvious, right? Which means they're true. However, I can see the entire Chicago skyline, and it's not atmospheric, and the math is not incorrect. So the only explanation is it's not round, right there at least. So what do you do with that? Well, most people will get mad at you for bringing it up, for even suggesting it. It's ridiculous. Why? We have pictures from space. That's the reason
from where? From
they get
what?
agitated. Well, the
Right.
picture
From
of the Earth from space
NASA.
it's 12 strips of data, and it's sewn together. That's what Robert Simon of NASA admitted. And you can find that out for yourself, but the normie won't. Okay?
Right.
In other words, I'm telling you right now that picture of the Earth from space is a cartoon. It's 12 strips of data that were sewn together, and then clouds and color were added. And he even says, I used Photoshop. So if you ask your phone, picture of Earth from space, you will get what's called the big blue marble. It was created by Robert Simon, and it's not a picture of the Earth from space. It's a cartoon. It was created by man. It has nothing to do with a picture from space. Yet, most people, if you try to suggest the Earth is flat, they will freak out on you because they have a picture of the Earth from space that shows it being round. So they're deceived. The data they're relying on to be so arrogant and so snarky is fake.
Well, and if you want to look at Warner von Braun's headstone, maybe you could, but they don't. It's like hilarious almost. It's like a slap kind of, right?
Yes.
I mean, and if you get into that, like it's all my husband even said to me when I first started this journey, and I had Josh Monday on, and he's a flat earther, and he breaks it down wonderfully through the Bible. He's a biblical flat earther, and I said, babe, you got to watch this because this is a lot. And he's like, oh, now you're going to do that. Now people really are going to think you're crazy.
Yes.
And I was like, well, I don't know what to say. This is information. I don't know.
See, that's really the track that I'm on. It's not so much having a back and forth where I prove to you that I'm right. It's actually exposing the mind control behind your response to my suggestion. So the philosopher Aristotle said the mark of an educated man is the ability to consider a matter without embracing it. What are you getting so worked up about?
Right.
Sir, ma'am, this is me talking. I don't have this history of mental health. You've known me my whole life. Why is it that you're shutting me down? What's really going on? So you have to really haul the mind control responses out into the open and have them realize that they're being manipulated in their response.
Yep.
What's really going on is they are afraid. They're operating out of fear that what you're saying is true, because they could tell there's meat on the bones of our arguments. They can't really. You can't tell me why I can see the Chicago skyline. You have no answer.
Right. Well, and you can't argue a lot of it. There's so many examples. Yeah.
And you could repeat that, by the way, anywhere. You can go to Myrtle Beach. I did it North Myrtle Beach, and there was a hotel about 50 miles down the beach. Well, there should be 1,600 feet of curvature. I got my binoculars. I could see almost the bottom of the hotel. That should have been impossible. So it's not just that one spot. It's everywhere. So if the earth is round, why is it flat? Why do you
and a
believe what you're
picture,
told?
like the picture is presented to you by the people controlling the whole agency. By the way, there's never been one person supposedly in space that is not a Mason or a Mormon, just so you
Correct.
know.
It's about 540 of them. They're all
Yep.
government, they're under strict non-disclosures, and they can be court-martialed and disappeared. They all are threatened with life or with death. But like you said, there's tons of evidence that they're all Freemasons as well. So people will tell you, oh, that's ridiculous. Do you mean all of the space programs are, lying to all of humanity? Yes. Yes, that's what we mean.
Yes. And why have they demonized so many things like, okay, if you go down the road to occultism and you go to mystery schools and you learn about certain things, especially John D. What was he? He was a mathematician. Why was math so important? Because he said it was the language of God. So why is math so looked down upon? And we literally hear it from almost every kid before they can even learn math. They say, I hate math because somebody else hated math. And then they make it impossible by making it stupid. This Common
Yeah.
Core stuff, like your brain can't accept that because that's ridiculous. And so then you are like, yeah, I hate math, so I mean, but over in Asian countries or other countries that aren't similar to us, what do they push? Math. Why? Yeah. Well, what our kids are watching on TikTok is not the same as Asian countries' TikTok, and it isn't just about communism, right?
Yep.
This is about having a leg up, and not only that, but like, I mean, I could go down to a level of whole DNA corruption. Like there's certain things that and people laugh all the time. Like my husband's family always says, "Well, who are they? Like who runs? Who is that?" And then you try to then my husband said Illuminati and that conversation was over. So
Right.
it just yeah.
So right now, you can go to any number of articles, hundreds and hundreds of them. The Psychology Today, all kinds of different publications from officialdom will tell you it's a conspiracy, that there's a secret cabal running the world from behind in the shadows, the Illuminati. It's all a conspiracy theory for kooks. Yet you have Trump running for office and saying, if you vote for me, I'll eliminate the deep state. And a lot of the people that are cynical and insulting you because you believe there's a secret cabal are Trump supporters. So it's raining red pills, and the unconvinced normies are their worldview is collapsing into ours. It's a very interesting period of time to be alive, because we're going to see things this year that the wheels are coming off the wagon.
It's been coming. Yeah, it's all fallen. Yeah, and the Hegelian dialect has made it so. Like at this point, the people that hated Trump because Trump said grab her by the what or whatever he's done, right? Like, okay, so look at who he was before. Like that doesn't matter to me. But because it was so much better of a life, and then you bring in this disaster of a situation with Biden, it's like, oh, they'll do anything now. Like even the people that hated him now are 100 on board, which makes me wonder, is this the great deception and right before our eyes? Like, I mean, you're going to be led to your savior. Come with me, I'll fix it all. Well, was it all blown up on purpose? I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist, but sure, I can see that. This is their language. They literally live for this. They love when there's a problem. They love when there's a dispute. They even if they don't create it, they'll take advantage of it. It doesn't matter, And where are the philosophers of old? Like, why was it that back in the olden days, you and I would be philosophy people, right? Like we would be having a discussion and we would, this would be acceptable to have differences of opinions. And that with that difference of opinion came many inventions and great exploration,
Right.
right? And then so if I say it didn't and you say it did, then I go on a journey to prove to you America's real. And then I say, look, hey, blah, blah, blah. Why did I even do that? So I could show you so. But nowadays we don't want to do that. We can't even talk about it.
Well,
They want to shut it down.
Yeah, the social programmers have been very effective at inculcating society into the cancel culture. So your difference of opinion is actually categorized as violence. And I'm then justified in being violent back at you. So people aren't willing to have critical thinking anymore. They just want to regurgitate sound bites and get into a brawl. So it becomes very impossible to have intelligent discourse with most people.
Well, and the fun part is this relates to Mormonism. So my husband and me always make a joke is if you really want to have an argument with someone about Mormonism, you got to have an argument with someone that's inactive, right? You got to have a Jack Mormon is what we call it.
Okay.
And they only go to church like twice a year and they don't really live it and they smoke and drink and have coffee and do all the things, but they were brought up that way.
Yep.
And if you have an argument with that guy, he will fight you to the death over it. He doesn't do it. He doesn't believe it necessarily 100, but his core value is that. And there was, there's been multiple mind control experiments that are declassified with this information. If you tell someone the sky is blue, for example, and you change it to purple and you make that person be in fear for 30 days, only 30 days, you tell them every day that the sky is purple under fear, and you just make them completely flipped out and you do that, they will never change that thought. Even if the same person comes back and says, I was just kidding. It's blue. Here's the evidence. Here's the research. Here's the stuff, blah, blah, blah. But they did it in fear. And so now they'll just look at you and say, no, you're wrong. From the very person that taught them.
When I was first married, we lived next door to a very devout Mormon couple. They had a strong family, very involved in the Mormon church. And I'm coming from a very orthodox biblical worldview. I'm a born-again believer, spirit-filled, was in full-time ministry. So I decided just to love my neighbor, and I wasn't trying to convert him. But they eventually got around to asking me if they could come over with the two elders. And I welcomed it because I've studied, the Mormon church, Joseph Smith, all of his journey and everything that he did and what happened, the history of it all. So they come over, and it's him and his wife, Jody and Tracy, and the two elders, and they start peppering me with questions. And I just started, pointing out the conflicts in their doctrine, because they do put forward the Bible as an authority. So they have to argue scriptural controversies. So finally, I quoted Ephesians 2:8. We are saved by grace through faith and not of works, lest any man should boast. It's the gift of God. And the wife turns to the husband and says, if that's true, what are we doing? And she stormed out.
That's funny.
So there's a very strong thread of works in the Mormon church. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. It rules our life. And when I found out that was dirty rags, it shook me, because it's most of your life, right? And they tell you that, number one, the Bible is not 100% true. It's only true in as much as it's translated correctly. So if you ever get into an argument with them and you present the Bible in an argument to discount what they're saying, like even if an angel appears unto you and gives you another book, it's false and he's a liar, right? Like that's not perfectly, but that's what it says basically.
Yeah.
So then they'll say, well, that's probably just translated incorrectly. Like whenever it's incorrect, they kind of they throw it away. And so also, they have lots of little tricks this way, and they'll say, well, we have to do works because if you only earn 70% of your exaltation here on earth, then Jesus will kick in the 30%. But you have to do a lot. It's not 100% given, and you have to. It's a very When you bring up Masons with it, and I went the whole way. I did the temple ceremony. I did all of it. They're Masons, and it's a very I'm important. I'm going to exalt myself. I'm going to make my own way. That's why they have so much money, because they put this into kids as a really young kid, and they're all mostly overachievers that make it pretty far.
Yeah.
They push that, push that, push that, and you want to go to heaven, don't you? Even when you're sitting there in your weirdo stuff and you're like, this doesn't feel right. And I think I would like to not be here now. And you do it again because it's going to get you to heaven, you know?
Well, the teaching is that as God is, so we will be. And God, Elohim, the Father, is actually on the planet Korem with a bunch of women, right? So the men get to get their own planet with a bunch of galactic babes for eternity.
Yeah, they have spirit babies forever.
I always wondered, what is the female's expectation of eternity?
Obedience.
It's just to eternally be there for the man to pleasure himself.
Yep. And we are required to do that because we are only saved by his priesthood. And so we are not saved by ourselves. We have to have that through him. And when we go through the fake veil, like in the fake heaven in the temple, he gets a new name, and he gives his new name to God, who is on the other side, fake God. And when I go through, I give my new name to my husband because he is my God. Yes.
Polygamy, obviously Joseph Smith was a polygamist, and his beliefs, filtered down through the religion. But one question I have for you on this topic is it correct that they believe that Jesus and Lucifer were brothers, and they got into a brawl, and then all of the people that were born black were
they were cursed.
They were cursed, right? Because they
Yes,
followed
the black. Yes, specifically the black. So the War of Heaven, when this happened, and there was this big, brawl, and the people that were unsure, the people that were like, I don't know if I should follow Lucifer or Jesus. I don't know what I should do. And they sat there, and they called them fence sitters. And the fence sitters were cursed with a darkened skin. And there are multiple scriptures. Yeah.
All right. So are there any black Mormons? You don't see any black
Yes.
Mormons.
Yes, you do. And I don't understand it. And my brother actually married outside of our race, a black woman. My mom did as well, a Latin man, all these different, like my sister married half Hawaiian, half Chinese. So my family is really different than most Mormon
Didn't
families
they
would
revise
be.
that? I think they revised
1978.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
they did.
Before then, you could not get to heaven except top heaven, because there's 3. You
Yeah.
couldn't go to the celestial kingdom with being black, but you could go as a servant, because they supported slavery, and Brigham Young was racist. And I don't understand how any black person accepts that, and having a black niece. I mean, yeah, that one
Right?
bothers me. Yeah, no, I'm not okay with that.
I mean, those guys, I lived next to them for 8 years. I mean, they were the nicest people. I mean, family was beautiful. Just
they were probably white and delightsome. That's a Mormon joke. Because
what does that mean?
It says this in the scripture about the curse of the black skin, and it says, and they were no longer exceedingly white and delightsome, but had a curse of darkness like flint. So,
well, it seems obvious. Like if you come to the door, if a Mormon is doing their 2-year missionary thing, right? They come to the door with the Bible. They don't lead with the Book of Mormon, because the Bible is going to have a lot more credibility. So that's super deceptive right on the face. You're leading with the Bible because it's going to give you a better closing ratio, but you really don't believe in it. That's wicked.
Yeah, and they do the same thing for eternal families and the temple work. See, it's all Masonic, so no one can speak of it. Not even your family prepares you for what you're going to do once you get there. And by the time you get there, it's very Scientology. It's like you've already put everything in. And if you're somebody like me, who their whole family, I mean, my DNA says Mormon settler. So like it's my whole life, and I live in Utah in the Mecca, and everybody here is Mormon, and not everyone, but it feels that way. And so by the time you get to this position where you're like, this seems really messed up and wrong and weird, and I don't know about this, it's almost too late,
Yeah,
even
it's
if
too
you
late.
feel that way. Yeah.
Yep. That's no question. You're deep. It's hard to get
Yeah.
out.
And then your family disowns you. And because if you have the full knowledge, see, my husband, he never went the whole way. He got out pretty young. So he didn't go through the temple like I did. I'm an apostate, which means there's only two people that go to outer darkness, which is like hell, but it's more reminds me of purgatory. It's like the absence of all God and absence of anything. It's just nothing. And the only people that go there are murderers and apostates. And they let you know
Ouch.
that. Yeah.
Ouch.
So the family members are like encouraged, speaking like what happened with you. If your wife leaves or your husband leaves and you're a Mormon, you're kind of back in the day encouraged to leave, to
Right.
get a divorce.
First Corinthians 6 tells us, I think it's 6, tells us that if your unbelieving spouse leaves,
Hmm.
you can let them go because we're called to peace. So there's only 3 criteria for that where divorce is sanctioned: sexual immorality, death, or this other option where
Hmm.
I didn't leave. Okay, I didn't ask my wife. I begged her
Right.
not to do it multiple times, and she ultimately told me, "I don't want to be married to you. We're in 2 different worlds."
Right.
So that's what the truther is up against. Just like what we just heard you say in the Mormon, leaving the Mormon church is like leaving the world. Now, what I
Hmm.
recently realized is that this experience of waking up is loving the world.
Hmm.
The normie, my beautiful family, loves the world. They don't
Hmm.
like the idea that the world is completely evil and it's run by blood drinking Luciferian psycho mobsters that want you dead. They
Hmm.
don't like the idea of that being true. And so they love the world system, which is run by Lucifer, as we can see
Hmm.
over and over in the Bible. And they're just going to fight you tooth and nail. And if you're adamant about not compromising and living a lie, and being a co-conspirator with the enemy of God, you are going to have a hellstorm laid on you that is like the Spanish Inquisition. And it may not be like that, but I've found that it is for most people. So you're going to have to pick the path you're going to walk and
Well,
decide who you're going to tick off. It's either everybody around you or God, because God does not take kindly to his children lacking integrity. He said in Psalms 50, I think, I require truth in the inward parts. So truth is not an
mhm.
option for the believer. It's not optional.
Well, and it says we are not to love this world. This is not our home. It says this. Like everything we learn about is we're not supposed to love it here, right? This isn't where we belong because
Right.
God goes and prepares a home for us, right? Like we're not supposed to like it so much that we want to
Right.
stay here or be here or put our feet in the cement here, like, and if you believe in God, then you have to believe in miracles and strange things and wild stuff, right? Because that's all over the Bible, and then it's impossible to do that nowadays. Why? Like if I came home tomorrow and said I have to build an ark because it's going to flood again or something, like people would just put you in a place I work, into to the mental place. Like you wouldn't get the same, and they did make fun of Noah, but look, when it's right, like what do you do with that? Do I think that fallen ones are here? It says they are. It says that there were fallen angels before the flood and after. It says it. And if you study the extra canonical books, which I don't believe all of them should have even been removed. I'm sorry. Like you have to do your research. But if you're going to only do that for 10 minutes on TikTok, you're probably not going to get very far. Like, this is just not going to work, you know?
Wow. What you just said gave me another message I'm going to create, which is this idea that Noah was given advanced intel. So for 100 plus years, he's creating this ark. Well, that's what the truther is doing. They've been given advanced intel, and then they go to their normie, unconvinced loved ones and they start warning them. But the normie loves their happy life. They love the world. And the truther is on a war footing. Okay, you've gone from living on a cruise line to living on a battleship. Your head's on a swivel. You've got a sense of urgency. You realize the system is weaponized against you. You know, they want you dead. Look at the Georgia Guidestones. Reduce the population to 500 million. I mean, they're telling you. And so what we trade in when we do this is we get glory. Like, I give this example. One of my heroes is David Hogan. He's a missionary in Mexico. And he's raised like 30 people from the dead. His team has raised like 500 people from the dead. He single-handedly went in and won this entire region of Mexico to the Lord, village by village, which is completely controlled by the drug cartels. So he's almost died hundreds of times. And God continuously delivers him supernaturally. His testimonies are mind-boggling. And it's a whole nother level of Christianity. And so he does, I mean, he's a patriarch, a living patriarch. And so he has teams that come down there now. He's world famous. And then the teams come down there. And this one team comes down there to train. And the person asked him, "So are you happy?" And he said, "No." He's real gruff. He's like Grizzly Adams, you know. "No, I'm not happy. I've got scorpions in my room and it's hot.
Right.
I'm always being killed. No, I'm not happy. But I've got God, and God lets me play in his playhouse." So what we do is we trade in the happy life for the war that's raging all around us, right? There's this galactic war between good and evil. And we're just been going bowling and worrying about landscaping and playing the next vacay. Now raising your family is a priority, but they're not mutually exclusive. You can be a truther and raise your family. You could be a truther and go to work and provide for your family. But what happens is that the truther has this overnight born again experience, basically, where you find out these things are happening, you know, Earth is flat, the Mandela effect, chemtrails, underground bases, 13 families, bloodlines, it's just, your mind is just going, what?
It's mind melting.
Yeah, your people around you are just la-di-da-di-da. They're just whistling past the graveyard. They have no interest in finding out. And you're just sitting there with your nerve endings hanging out, and you're like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
They're not coming with me on this ride. So you have to figure out how you're going to coexist with people that are basically become your enemies. Jesus said, "I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword, and the members of your own household will be your enemies." I'm telling you, they don't like you anymore. It's not that you just have a difference of I'm Democrat and I'm married to a Republican. No. It's nothing like that. It's way worse.
My husband I sent him your episodes because he likes to know like what I'm doing or whatever. He's very into it too. And he said, "You tell that guy that I have felt the same way since I was 15 with my family, and that he's not alone." Because it is so hard. And I think it's even more hard for men because as a woman, people expect you to be a little nuts. Like, "Oh, she's probably got her monthly thing. It's fine. She's just a little wild." You know what I mean? Like, just that girl, she's a little off, but she's fine, because she's got a pretty face. Let her do what she wants.
Yeah.
Let her say what she wants. Like,
Right.
it's fine. That's just who she is. But like you men, you guys are not, you're the leaders. So like when a man does it, it's a whole different deal.
Ooh.
Right? Like you're you're born to lead. You're the family man. You're the boss. Like, oh, now it's your fault. No, this is your fault. If one of your kids happened to come with you, now that's your fault, and you've doomed everybody, and now everybody's in trouble because of you, right? But
Yes.
John 2:15-17 says, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. And it keeps going, right? It says, for everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, the boasting of what he has and does, comes not to the Father, but from the world.
Mm.
So, how come we can see that? And I'm not saying I don't like to look nice or wear makeup. I use fallen angel technology. We're using it right now. Okay. We are.
Yep.
However, what is your intention with it? Why am I using it? Am I using it to talk about how to apply my mascara to 100,000 people? No, I don't care about that. I
Right.
don't care anymore. It's gone on me, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to save people, and it's not acceptable anymore. And it's my nature. That's who I am, right? And you men have it more, which is why I believe in the conspiracy community. There is so much more men because it is your duty. It's literally required of you,
Yeah,
right?
this is a great point, because this realm is very confusing. What we're born into is so many questions, and I think that
Mhm.
the answer to probably one of the most important passages in the Bible is this dialogue with Job and God,
Mhm.
or no, Satan and God over Job, because basically there's no way you can deny this, that God basically had this narrative going with Satan,
Mhm.
because Satan comes before the throne with his other angels, and God initiates this conversation, says, where you been? And he says, oh, I've been walking back and forth on the earth, roaming around on the earth. And then God brings up Job, not Satan. Hey, have you
Mhm.
seen my servant Job? Well, what does that mean? That means that this is like a chip on God's shoulder. It's something that they've been going back and forth on. And God has a need. Now, you can argue that theologically, that
Some
God is
people say it's
sovereign.
not real, or it was a
Well,
story, but I think
no,
it was real.
God has no need. He's the all-sufficient one. I understand,
Mhm.
but love has intrinsically it includes desire for the
Well,
object of your love.
and it's prideful, right? Like, in a way, like, it's okay. Like, what do you do if you see your friend and you haven't seen him in a long time? What do you do if you have kids? Oh, look at my son. He's a strapping young glad he's doing this, blah, blah, blah. We're happy about it. We want to show them. So I could see why, like, especially where Lucifer was like, that's a crappy creation.
Mm-hmm.
That's so beneath me. So I felt like in that situation, God was like, hey, he's not. Look, he's good. Look, he's great.
Right. Well, Satan is accusing God of being unjust by saying that people only serve you because you bless them. That's the narrative.
Mhm.
And God
Yep.
is saying, no, man is able to know me, and my divine perfections are sufficient for them
Mhm.
to align with me and obey me and serve me and love me, because I am greater than man, and man deserves to have be lifted out of the fallen state and be restored to me on my terms. So nothing is perfect in this world. There's two streams, there's evil and good, and all of your questions won't be answered. And that's part of this realm, is
Mhm.
the two polar opposites are always there. And what we do is we fight God on this. We resist how he runs his universe, and we get mad at him when we don't want to pray. We're tired, and I don't want to fast. I
Mhm.
like eating, and I don't want to battle sin. I want lust, and I don't want to serve people. I want to go bowling, So
Mhm.
this is the great contest that we're all offered. And
Mhm.
it just seems that most people are not willing to enter into reality, because
Mhm.
reality is unfolding, and
It's
things
because
are.
it's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. If you want to take the easy way, like, it's far better to most, right? Like the guy with the steak thing in the Matrix, right? Like he just wants to
Yes.
be happy.
Yeah.
And happiness is a lie in general because honestly, at the end of most people's journey as a nurse, I've seen it. It's not that they didn't spend more time at work or that they didn't accomplish more or they didn't have more money or they didn't do more vacations. The one thing that they'll say that they regret the most is that they didn't spend more time with their families and in that kind of thing, right? Well, what does that come from? Why do we want to do that? Who sets that up? Who's the actual most high family? Who fills us like
Mm.
that, right? Like that's our father. There's a reason that
Yes.
we want that. It's like a dog. Like you can feed a dog every day and love the dog. And many people in the example of Job, if you didn't have any more food for the dog because everyone's starving, would the dog leave you? I don't think so.
No.
I have a dog, he wouldn't leave me,
Right.
right? They don't do that just because and maybe the neighbor has food, even. But even if he went and got the food, guess where he'd come back? Like if they can
Mm.
find their way back, they're going to come back. And it's out of love, like that unconditional love.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. Dogs, I mean, there's a reason why it's God spelled backward, right? Like, I
Ah,
mean,
that's
yeah,
right. Right.
it's
Right.
what it is. But, and I think so many things what you talk about, like the Mandela effect of the Bible hit. There were certain things you said, and I wonder if we're close similar age because I'm 48 this year. And I always knew the Lord's Prayer. It was my go-to prayer. It wasn't like I just knew it a little bit. As weird as it sounds, I went to Catholic school for a year because it was for a gifted program. I was like this Mormon kid in, in Catholic school, but the Lord's Prayer always helped me so, so, so much. So I knew it backwards and forwards, literally, like it was my prayer because
Mm.
I had a really hard childhood and became a ward of the court at 12. And so it was something that I needed, and I learned it there.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew the words. I don't have to look them up. One day we were saying the prayer all together and we're holding hands and somebody said debtors. And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? She's born in 1980. And I said, it doesn't say that. So I went and got my oldest Bible that I have, a really
Mm.
old Bible. And I was like, what is this? Well, then the lion and the lamb. So then I went down that rabbit hole because I was like,
Yeah.
what? And she even has a tattoo of a wolf. And she says, no, because look, this is why I got this tattoo. And I said, it doesn't say that. I had some stuff as a kid with the lion and the lamb laying together
Yes.
on like some stuff like from church. Like I remember it because I thought it was weird. And
Yes.
I also identified with the lion because I'm a Leo and I didn't know
Mm.
astrology was bad back then. So like literally I knew this. Like I
Yeah.
was like, no, that's not true. And it rocked me. And then I started remembering something, even though I was raised Mormon, sometimes their doctrine of old is similar to Christian doctrine. And I don't know if I heard it there or if I heard it from, I had a Jehovah's Witness neighbor too, which also odd. But anyway, all of that. And I remember hearing one day you won't be able to read the Bible anymore. You won't. I thought it meant they would take them away, so I've always kept my Bibles like closer everywhere, whatever. And it said for us to be diligent and memorize the scriptures,
Yeah.
right? And I always thought that's impossible. It's too much, and I know you have a lot to say about this, and I'm going to give you the floor because it is mind-boggling. I don't
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to take anything. I think it's going to go away.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a topic you'd be open to, because it's a third rail for truthers or Christians, I mean, I'd be glad to come back because this would really require almost a whole show. Because what we're talking about is what's called Mandela effect in the pop culture, but
Mhm.
it's actually a end times prophecy of Daniel 7:25 and Amos 8:11, which is what you were just referencing, where God says that he would send a famine, but not a famine of bread, it'll be a famine of the word. and men will seek the word, and they will not be able to find it. And this is clearly an end times prophecy. Well, how can that happen? Because we got Bibles on flash drives and everywhere. Well, what's happening is mirror, mirror on the wall never existed. It's always been magic mirror on the wall.
No way.
Yeah. And, 92% of people polled all said mirror, mirror. So historic or sociologists have shown that if people misremember something the same way, more than 10% of the time, that's an anomaly. And this is like 90% are all misremembering it the same way, which is statistically impossible. And that's true with not one, but thousands of things now. So something has happened in the realm starting in around 2017 where there's been some sort of shift. And we don't really know what it is. It's a consciousness shift, or we've shifted to another universe, or it's an implanted thought. But what it isn't, and this is after 7 years of full time doing this on one thing. My entire ministry is predicated on providing a biblical analysis of the Mandela effect. So I am a leading expert in the world on this topic, unquestionably. And what I'm telling you is it's not misremembering, period. Impossible to make that case. So what it is a mystery. It's a phenomenon. And the things that are changing in the Bible, the things that are changing around us in pop culture, which are like movie lines, people's names, spelling of words. It even includes geography, like South America.
Like Sally Fields,
Yes.
Field, like
Sally
silly.
Fields
Yeah.
is Sally Field.
That's not, no
Chris
way.
Reeves is Chris Reeve. So a lot of S's have disappeared, and it's just, it's so obvious. But the problem is that this phenomenon includes the Bible. Now, there's a handful of passages which are held out to try to say that couldn't happen. Thy word is forever settled in heaven is an example. Psalms 119. The problem with that is the church, and I'm coming from not only a biblical worldview, but full-time ministry. I was in full-time ministry in a large church, 2,000 people, for 10 years. And then I was in lay ministry for another 20 years, almost full-time ministry. And so I've not just been in the church, I've been on the platform. I've been living and working around ministers and seeking the Lord and studying the Word. So I can tell you that when we open our Bibles, we know this book. I mean, I've literally worn out Bibles. So when I opened my King James Bible, and the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, has never been in the King James Bible or any other translation. That's the 1611 Cambridge, none of the 5 modernizations of the King James, and none of the other translations have ever, in any point in history, had the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. What it's always been is the Lord gave and the Lord hath taken away.
No.
And then you have scriptures like, judge not, blank ye be judged. What would you put in there, Heidi?
Lest ye.
Judge not, lest ye be judged, will come out of the mouth of billions of people. Not hundreds or thousands or millions. Billions of people. Now, judge not, lest ye be judged, has never existed in any translation ever in recorded history.
No way.
What the intelligentsia, the thought leaders, the Bible school presidents that I've talked to, and I've talked to many people at that level, will tell me, well, John, I can clear this up. I can tell you why this is happening. You're just confusing misquotes from pop culture.
All of us? All of us?
Yes, that's their best shot, and I say my response to that is, really? That's what you're going to go with?
Yeah, all of us are wrong. All of the billions of people that answered it. Yeah, no.
Right. So I can go into pastors' offices. I've done it 20 times. I've sat across from pastors and I've stumped them 10 or 15 out of 10 or 15. Who went in and killed the firstborn in Egypt when God sent the judgment? Do you remember?
The angel of death.
The angel of death has never appeared in any Bible.
No.
The angel
No
of
way.
death has been replaced supernaturally, and now the Lord goes in and kills them.
No.
Who wrestled
The
with
Lord.
Who wrestled with Jacob all night when he knocked him in the hip? Remember that?
I don't remember that one as
It was
much.
most people remember an angel, but now it says he wrestled with a man. And so, do you remember the story where Jesus made mud out of his spit?
Yeah. He made a paste. Yeah,
Yes.
some kind
Well,
of paste.
now that's still in there, but now there's another one that says he spit right in the guy's face.
No, no
Yes.
way.
I think it's Mark chapter 8.
That's weird.
And what's being introduced? Yes, it's Mark 8:23. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw naught. Now, what happens at this moment is that people will put on their cape and they'll become commentary man. And they'll try to explain why that's in there, but that's irrelevant. Because what we're saying is that if I'm talking to a pastor who's a content expert, they went to Bible school for 4 years, and then they've been in the ministry for 40 years. So they've prepared sermons every Sunday and then maybe Wednesday. And so my question to the pastors is, hey, pastor, is this the first time that this has ever come to your attention? And they'll say nothing, because they know it's a dreadful, damning question. And they'll try to go this way, and I'll just bring them back, and sometimes I'll have to ask them 4 or 5 times. Is this the first time that this has ever come into your attention that this is in your Bible? Yes. Now I say, how is that possible? Because
you read it and study it all the time. Right. This is your job.
And this is one that's universal. I always use universal changes, because then you can't say it's just a Bible translation confusion. Oh, that's just, no, this is in every translation. There's no way out of this, okay? And then the problem is, then we're seeing what I call biblical paradoxes. It's not just quirky changes, because now you have passages like Leviticus 12 where God condones sacrificing turtles. No. Leviticus 12:8. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles.
Turtles?
Yes. There's female angels in the Bible now. In Revelation 1:13.
The only place I've ever seen female angels, funny enough, is John D. And that's the occult people.
Right. Well, Zechariah 5:9 says this. Now, it doesn't specifically say they're angels, but it's irrelevant, because what I ask pastors, hey, pastor, in your studies, are there any passages that even remotely insinuate that there might be female angels? No. So listen to this. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and beheld, came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, and they had the wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. Now, I'm here to tell you that when I was in Times Square Church, I had a lot of time on my hands. I studied the Bible 4 or 5 hours a day for 10 years. And then I was in another 20 years where, I've been in the Word. And if this was in there, I would have known it.
You would have remembered, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. That's weird. I mean, these kind of coincidences, I think, are unexplainable, number 1. Yeah. They are changing things, number 2. And number 3, I have an interesting thing I wanted to bring up for you, and I think that it applies to this, is when they last changed the world and did a great reset, when they last performed this, one of the first peoples that they annihilated, and one of the people that they went directly after, are who? The people with non-written heritage. It's oral. Like Native Americans, like people that know the story and they And the Muslims back in the day, the people didn't have they wouldn't write it, right?
Yeah.
That they didn't write anything until after Muhammad had passed. That he had 2 people that followed him around to memorize every word that he said. So these kind of things threaten them because what does it do? Maybe they're accidentally going to talk about Tartaria stuff. Maybe they're accidentally going to tell us the truth about some things, right? In their stories. And I think that it's interesting. And I don't think that it has anything as much to do with the color of skin. Maybe not anything, but as much as their knowledge. Because what are the cabal obsessed with? Like, they go to mystery schools, they learn, they want everybody to know certain things. And the Masons have, they got to level up. And so do the Mormons, level up. And you got to do these things. They're obsessed with knowledge. Anything they're obsessed with, you might want to pay attention to. They know the Bible better than we do. So do most Luciferians.
This is another huge topic. What you're talking about is this idea that I have embraced now, and many in the church that's not really in the church, we've left the church to follow Jesus, is that we are actually living in the period of time after the millennial reign. The evidence is overwhelming, and you wouldn't know it if it was happening, probably, because what's one of the most bizarre passages in the entire Bible is in the book of Revelation, where it says, after the millennial reign, Satan is loosed again for a little while to deceive the nations. Now, the evidence that leads up to that is what you mentioned, the orphan trains, the World's Fairs, the melted buildings, the mud floods, and of course, what we call architect, which are these impossible buildings that are all over the world. They're so ornate and so elaborate, and they were supposedly built in 1 or 2 years in the 1800s with no power tools. It's like, do you really believe the pyramids were built by slaves with ropes and pulleys and copper tools? No, there's something else going on. And so what we're finding out in this last hour is that history is such a complete lie. There's probably 1,000 years missing from our history. So it's not 2024, it's 1024. And the missing 1,000 years is, you guessed it, the millennial reign. That's the dark ages. It's billed as the dark ages, but it was actually the millennial reign. So in this narrative, the mark of the beast, the tribulation, has already happened. Satan was thrown in the pit, and then he was held there for 1,000 years. And the millennial reign is when all these ornate buildings were created. And then at the end, we now have a release of Satan. He didn't escape. God lets him out. And then the central planners came in, and they put everybody that didn't toe the line and go along with the new narrative into asylums. And then they repopulated all the different countries with orphans from who knows where. You mentioned Cabbage Patch. That's a really bizarre topic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is the world we live in. This is why you can't live with your normie loved ones very easily, because they're on another dimension as far as what they're focused on.
Well, if you focus on things like this and you read something like Cabbage Babies, that's crazy. Like, this is crazy. Okay, well, read something the alchemists read called the Book of the Cow. And the Book of the Cow will tell you how to make a homunculus, or you can study about Diana of Ephesus. And then the funny thing is Diana of Ephesus has, they figured out cloning a long time ago. But then if you want to get scientific and you don't want to go down that road, go research Clonade and see what you can find out there, because I'll tell you, it's an interesting sidestep, and they're protected because they're a religious organization. However, I know this. I was okay with the orphan trains until I learned how many children were relocated. People say, well, people died back then. Okay, how come the babies lived then? Because the babies are the number one thing that are going to die. And if you look into families back then, Many babies died, and most people had death of infants quite often. However, at the same time, you have the World's Fair. You have this doctor that decides to save all the preemies because we already have kids working in factories because we have too many, and we don't even know what to do with them. But we're going to save more because we don't know what to do with the other ones that already exist. Let's save these ones too. But they don't look quite right. And he's not really a doctor. He doesn't have a doctorate degree of any sort. But also the fact, I know one thing, who was in charge of the orphan trains? It was the Freemasons, and they relocated 250,000 children in the United States alone, and that is a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And when you start to research fallen angel, cloning stuff, I know one thing. It says there's different blood types, and literally the Rh rhesus factor didn't exist until I think it was 47 is when it actually came out. And there's all these strange things that they can't explain. Okay. I know one thing that most people would not turn away. If you went somewhere and you seen a baby in the middle of a road, would you just leave it to get hit? Most women would not. Most people have, if you watch old shows, which you're into the Mandela, so you would know, like the Princess Bride, what did they have? They had a farm boy. Why is it called a farm boy? Why is this a normal thing to have? Where are his parents? Why is this a thing? Why is this like a normalized thing? There's just a farm boy with no parents there. Okay. Most people are going to accept a helpless child as such, a helpless child. But did it corrupt our DNA at that time? Because those kids grew up and they had kids.
Yeah, it begs the
They-
question, are we then the
Yeah.
ancestors of Cabbage Patch Kids?
Makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what exactly all the babies at all the Catholic places that were buried. Oh, no, those were abortions that went wrong or this or that. There's tons of skulls. Go to Ireland, study it. These are real things. Were they the mishaps? Were they not exactly right? Were they missing things? We will never know. But I do know this, there is a whole lot of evidence of certain things, especially with DNA manipulation, including 6 digits for kids. My neighbor had a 6 digit when I grew up. They had to cut it off. I knew. I'm sorry. Like these things, and it doesn't matter because what does God say? He came to save every man, woman, and beast, not just man or woman. So I don't think we're doomed if that is the case. But I do find it interesting that America, the people in America, look different. They have more health problems. They have different blood types a lot of times than most of the world as a whole. Like if you look at the whiteness, if you look at the characteristics, if you look at the disease process, why? You could blame it on food, but I find it interesting. There's a lot of stuff there. And I mean, it makes you wonder, but it's neither here nor there. It just adds to your credence in saying we're missing time. But anyways, I think it's strange, and I think it adds into what you were saying, because if you look at old buildings and old things, and I'm about to put out an episode about Trump. Do you know he had a World's Fair casino? Do you know after he had the World's Fair casino, he named it the Atlantis? Like these people know things that we don't know. And I think this up and coming, eclipse is interesting. Like not just the eclipse, but CERN is going to restart that day. They're going to shoot 2 rockets at it. Like what?
And there's going
crazy.
to be cicadas are going to be coming out of the ground for the first time in like 13 years or something. I was like, what?
Oh man.
On the
8th. Locusts. Yeah. And I mean, did you see about the old Simpson clip? I did a clip of this, but with the whale and the Cetus star constellation, like everybody's talking about Nineveh, but I think the signs of Jonah are much more impactful, right? Like, I don't know how you feel.
I would like to talk if we can. I don't know how long we've been going here, but
I don't care. Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
So I want to talk about Trump because so many people in the truther community are really struggling to try to figure out what Trump is all about. Like, is this guy in any way legitimate, or what is it that we're seeing? So the way I'm analyzing things is, first of all, what people say matters, but not really. What you do actually tells me if what your agenda is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even
Yep.
that's fake, because you can watch two senators going at it on the floor of something, and then you see them glad handing each other in the hallway because they're all in the same team, right?
Yep.
But with Trump, what you've seen is the power structure go after this guy with a vengeance. Now, a lot of people in the truther community are trying to put forward the idea that all of that is staged, which to me, it seems really irrational, because you're censored and I'm censored on social media. So we are not shills, and the power structure is coming after anybody that's basically against the official narrative or their agenda. So what's more likely than Trump is a black hat shill is that he's a white hat shill. Okay, so if you don't think he's a normal, moral human being that wants good for humanity, you don't believe the official narrative of Trump, which is he and the military are teamed up and the white hats are operating in the background, which I do believe is true. I do believe that narrative. But where I differ is that you have a white hat, black hat narrative, just like you have a Republican Democrat narrative. They are both two wings of the same bird.
Yes.
And the white hat narrative is much more desirable. However, it probably ends in the same result for Christians, where you have the Noahide laws brought in, and all the Christians get their heads chopped off anyway by the white hat narrative, because there's a lot of support to the white hat narrative. You know, the Q movement was co-opted. It's clear that whole thing was maybe valid. We don't really know. There was a lot there, a lot of smoke, but there was also a lot of misinformation. So most people are really not happy with Q, right? But then you have all of this evidence where Trump came in and he was a wrecking ball to the establishment. He broke the spell over the media. I mean, I never saw any leader do what he did in his press conferences. It was unbelievable. And that created huge damage. He got us out of the climate accord. He got, out of us wars. The economy was booming. So, and then all of the attacks on him, the 2 impeachment attempts, and now look at what they're doing. We're being asked to believe that all of that is, both of them are all on the same team and they're both doing all this. No, that's not what's happening. What's more likely is that Trump is a faction, and you're watching a turf war where the white hat narrative is what the overlords have chosen, and the Trump military narrative is now coming in, and maybe the black hat narratives are saying, no, I don't want to fall on my sword. Because you've got the Russian mob, the Chinese mob, you got the White Dragons, you got the P3 Masons, you have the Rockefeller dynasty, which is the most anti-human, the most evil. That's the Obama or the Bush, Obama, Clinton dynasty coming down through the Rockefellers, and they want to kill off everybody and merge with machines and live forever apart from God. And so maybe what we're seeing is Trump being a globalist Illuminati leader, because you can see all the Illuminati stuff in his hotel room pictures, right? But that doesn't mean that he's anti-human. So he might want to rule, because that's what the White Dragon said. We don't want to kill off everybody. We just want to rule over them. Well, I'll take that. I'll take that over Hillary any day, right?
Right. We're stuck in a situation where we have to choose one or the other. I do know he has like a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. Like he obviously must be somewhat into some of the Bible. It's also an anomaly to me that his very young son is already almost 6'6". I mean,
yes, it is.
maybe he's got red hair. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, maybe he's like you said on there's good and evil to all of these things. Even the fallen ones, not all of them even went with women. Okay. Some of them one didn't that we know of, you know. So the narrative has always been their own choice, really, at
Yeah.
some level,
Yeah.
right? So even if he is a Jesuit or whatever the case may be, I do find that life was easier under him, but then I always wonder, is it the great deception for the second round? That's what scares me and terrifies me, like, because there will come a great deception before the Antichrist, right? Like, that
Right.
scares me because maybe he's the one to usher in. And I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I do know this. I trust no one that has ever made it. I trust no one that has $1 billion or $1 million. Like, come on now. They know stuff you don't know and will never know
Right.
because, yeah,
I'm glad you said it. So that's the prevailing narrative that basically controls our decision process. But what's you're discounting in that narrative? I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to everybody. Is the God factor, because God raised up Cyrus, who was an
yes.
evil king, to deliver his people. So
Well,
regardless
yeah. And
of
David,
Trump,
too. David was a disaster. I mean,
well,
yeah.
David wasn't an evil
No,
king.
just a disaster.
Cyrus was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fact that he's got Illuminati memorabilia in his hotel room is irrelevant, or that he's grabbing people's vaginas or any of that stuff. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if God visited him in the Oval
Right.
Office and Jesus walked in and he got born again. Now, the other thing that people aren't considering is that the Trump that we're seeing may be a body double. And this is what
Hmm.
Benjamin Fulford says. He's got pretty strong intel. Okay, so what happened was after they stole the election, this is the narrative. I'm not saying this is what
Right.
happened. I'm
Yeah,
not
we're just
pro-Trump.
doing conjecture here, yeah.
Right. All right, so Trump and his family were going to be assassinated after they stole the election, and the military took him up to Greenland to a military base. And the deep state put this body double, which is why Trump is still pro-vax, because that really
It
takes a
was
lot of people
throwing.
out of the
Yeah.
game. They're like, the guy's Joseph Mengele if he's promoting the vax, and he's still doing it. So
Yep.
there's really no explanation or justification for the promotion of the vax, because we know it's a bioweapon. He certainly does. So why is he still promoting it? Like Alex Jones will say, well, he's just arrogant and he's bullheaded. And no, it's not that. And it's not that he's deceived and thinking it's good. The only thing that I can see outside of it being a body double is that he had no choice, because sometimes when you're in these no-win situations, you have to swallow a little evil to get the ultimate objective done. And it may have been that he had to do that for whatever reason, we don't know. But time will tell. I don't think we're going to have to wait long to find out
No,
which way
definitely
this
not.
thing is going to go, because it seems
Well,
like,
and that's if they'll even do a real vote. Like, let's be realistic here.
yeah,
People might want to put all their faith in whatever. That doesn't mean it's going to happen because they can do what they want. And they have shown us that. I think that was the whole narrative for the Biden win was them to say, you can do and support whatever you want. But look, we are in control of this because there's no way he won. So it was just a delay. For what purpose? I'm unsure.
now,
I mean, politics have always just, like I said, I'm always like, they're in it together. But Trump is a wild card. I'll give him that. You know, he's not. I know he didn't go to Bohemian Grove. I know that.
right.
You know,
So Jan Halper is on the task force at the Department of Defense, and she was interviewed on a major British newscast, and she stated as a public official for the first time that the U.S. government, the United States of America, is a corporation. That went through the whole legal education movement, which I'm a part of. And so that was bombshell. And so she then went on to say that Trump has all the information, and went over to all the countries, which he did, and he told them that he has all the scoop on them. I mean, the guy was the president, And he basically went to the Vatican. Remember when he stepped in front of the Queen?
Mm-hmm.
And they emptied out the Vatican archives of all the gold. 750 jets, she said, went in there and took out all the gold. Now, I have no way to prove this, okay? Except what I have now is a lady named Mickey Clan, and she's in the legal education movement, and they went into the city council meeting with a notice of discovery for all the people on the school board, saying that your requirement to mask our children is a violation of the Constitution. You're practicing medicine without a license. They listed about 20 different crimes, and then they demanded that the people either resign or produce their oath of office and their bond and their insurance policy. So she's gone on the offensive, and the people got up and ran out of the meeting. She's got it on video. They subsequently came back 7 days later and all voted 7-0 to eliminate masks. They were so emboldened by this, they started doing it with other counties, and it swept through the entire country all the way up to Biden, and they're claiming that that's why Biden eliminated the masks. Then it went to other countries. Okay, so here's my observation. If she did it, which I know happened, then it is possible that Trump did it with all the other countries. And what we are about to see is a complete vanquishment of the bad guys. And I know that this is happening. You see Puffy Combs just got raided.
Oh, yeah.
John Kerry just stepped down. Why? If they're in control, why is John Kerry stepping down? Unless the only explanation is they're all getting their tickets to the bunker and they're about to wipe us out. That's why they're being taken off.
Yeah.
But if it isn't that, then why did Nancy Pelosi step down? Why are all these people in positions of power being eliminated if the bad guys are in control? Because
other than a cataclysm, I can't see. I mean, I know they've been building bunkers and crazy stuff, and I'm like, holy cow. But I mean, I don't know. Other than that, I know that, the earthquakes and the darkness and all that was in the Bible before, right? Like, this has happened. Hopefully this isn't happening. I mean, it's concerning. I hope it's more of God talking to us, because it says in the end days that God will speak through signs and wonders, right? So I'm hoping it's that. That's what I'm praying for. If not, then we just know everything is coming to fruition quicker than we might believe, which I have no doubt could be also that. But I think it's funny that it's been so quiet, such a quiet running so far, right?
Yes.
Like, so meticulously quiet. Like, we're already almost to May. Like, what? I mean, this is coming so quickly and nothing much. I don't know about you, but I find it curious.
Yeah, the whole crypto market with the Bitcoin being adopted by BlackRock, and the ETFs are buying. There's 900 Bitcoin mined per day, and they're buying 6-7 times that every day. Wow. And now the halving's coming. So Bitcoin goes to $1 million per coin. Silver just hit $27. Now they just waterfalled it. It's down to 26, 25, whatever. But it's clear that, to me, I don't see how things can continue to roll on as business as usual, like it has for all of the last 50 years. The whole social fabric is coming unglued. They've destroyed over 100 major food manufacturing plants.
Yes, the food is so concerning. Yes.
They're shutting down the farms all over the world for the sake of global warming. It's ridiculous.
Yep, they're striking in other countries like crazy, and people don't know this. Like, back in the day, we would know this. This would be on the news, but it's not. I show my mom, because she's kind of she's like a normie that I haven't converted, but she still wants to know stuff.
Yeah.
She's not against it, but she also still got the shot and everything. And I was like, I talked to you about this forever. Like, what are you doing? And, it just, and she had a choice. Like, it wasn't her job or anything. She was just scared, but I talked to her about this stuff, and she looks at me like I've got, I'm not crazy. She believes it because she sees it, but she's also like, well, I would have heard about this. I
Oh,
watch the
yes.
evening news,
That's
and
right.
I'm like, you may as well turn that off. Like they're just telling you whatever they want to hear. You want you to hear,
See, that's the what I said earlier, how they got us to shut our brains off. I've had many
Mhm.
people tell me, John, if what you're saying was true, it would be on 2020. And I'm looking at them now, knowing what I know now, and just being dumbfounded by the ability of these central planners to weave this web and put us in a state of where it's like we have a cement block around our head. We can't function and question this whole system. It's so amazing.
It's not called television programming for nothing.
Right.
I turned it off long ago. I rarely, unless it's decompression, watch it. I
Yeah.
never watch the news. If I want information about the world, I will go find it, but I will not find it
I
there
do
because
check in with Fox and CNN on occasion just to see what they're saying because it's so
see what's up.
fascinating and how they're
Right.
saying it. CNN
Yeah,
especially.
it
I love watching
matters.
CNN because it's so foreign to me now watching them. And like I'll give you an example. The other day I saw the news released this bulletin. Kim Jong-un launched another test missile. And I just started laughing because this guy's been launching test missiles for like 6 years. And I kind of knew that already, but this time, I don't know, it just really hit me. Like I just started laughing and I was like, I see you. That doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not afraid of you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so it's just hard to
Because
know what's real.
it's hard to be fearful when you've been placed in fear so often, and I'm with you. I'm like, "Okay, well, God'll figure it out." Like, I just can't put my energy into that anymore. I used to. I used to get really worried,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this person's doing this," or "This is this, and maybe this is gonna happen," and I just do what we're supposed to do anyways because I figure, if people really comprehend and if we are where possibly we think we might be, I mean, Jesus doesn't come back because it's a peachy day.
No.
He
No,
comes
indeed.
back because there's some brutalization of his people, right? And I don't mean just the Jewish people, I mean his people,
Although
all
think
of
about it,
us.
Heidi, if we are in this period of Satan's little season, we have no eschatological grid for what's coming. The only
No.
thing we're told is that Satan will deceive the nations for a little while, and then there's some talk about this camp of the saints, and that's it. And then the white throne judgment.
Mhm.
Maybe the
Yep.
battle of Gog and Magog. Now that's what actually pushed me over. There's two battles, Armageddon and the Gog and Magog war. And the
Mhm.
Gog and Magog war, I think I'm correct if that's the second one, right? That's the later one.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, well that one is where the Euphrates River dries up and the 200 million man
Mhm.
army comes over, and you can Google that right now. The
Mhm.
Euphrates
Oh,
River
yeah.
is drying up
Mhm.
right now.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, that puts me in the period of time after the millennium.
Man. And then you start thinking, "Oh, I hope the little locked up prisoners aren't coming out very soon."
Did you see the
Uh,
copper
that
scroll they found because the Euphrates drying up, or they found it somewhere? It's this copper scroll, and it took them 10 years to unroll it
Oh
because
my
they
gosh.
didn't want it to get messed up. And it contains 64 treasure sites
Oh,
that
wow.
I don't know if they've gotten to any of them yet, but supposedly it discloses where there are 64 different lavish treasures stored in the world somewhere. Isn't this
Wow.
wild? Oh my gosh.
Well, they'll hide it from us. That'll be going missing soon. They're gonna find it.
Look it up. The copper scrolls.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look that up because
So
I
amazing.
mean, and the people that, I know this is a lot of stuff that we're dropping, but like you have to understand, like this is so much of this goes back to like biblical revelation, really.
Mm.
And if you know what you're supposed to look for, like he's like, this is this, and it's lining up with that and this, like I mean, we're not prophets. we're just being what we're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to watch and the signs of the time. We're supposed to be watchers, right?
Yes.
We're supposed to help other people, and you're supposed to sound the alarm. Like if you see the enemy coming and you don't say anything and you don't sound the alarm, then you have not done your job. Because for those of us that do have eyes to see and ears to hear, it's not comfortable. This is not a comfortable position to be put in. And
No, it isn't.
it's just not. Yeah. I'm sure this book wasn't easy to write. I'm sure what you went through is not easy and still continues not easy. Like it's like, what was the reward? If you did this for gain, right? You're doing this for gain. Okay. And you're not crazy because you wrote a book during this time, but whatever. Say you were, whatever. Let it go to that. You seem not. Like, obviously, what is the purpose for you to cause this much stuff? Like, what is it? Right?
It's certainly not money.
Yeah, no.
I'm, financially challenged. It's certainly not happiness, because I cried this morning. I cry almost every day. It's not, anything I would aspire to. You're sort of presented with the truth, and then when you choose to follow it wherever it leads you, it ends up being a veil of tears. And then you have to trade, like you said before, you trade that in for glory. So, God just spoke to me. I actually quit a month ago. I woke up one morning. I said, "That's it. I can't even face the day. How am I supposed to be this inspirational leader?" I quit. I'm not asking permission. So I went to Panera Bread, because that way I don't have to eat alone. And I came back. I did an interview, and then I went, all right, I'm going to compose a goodbye video to all my subscribers, and then I'm just going to go get a job selling insurance and be normal. And I said, but before I do, let me just go over on the couch and just say a prayer. So I grabbed the Bible, which turned out to be my mother's Bible, which I never use. And I said, this is what I said. I said, God, do you want me to do this Mandela thing and be faithful to this? Because what I'd really rather do is just go get rich. That's exactly what I said. Now, I don't recommend this as a way to hear from God, but I then flipped open the Bible, and it flipped open to Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 30, verse 20. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he that hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. Was highlighted by my mother.
Oh, boy.
Was the only page on scripture on that page that was highlighted. And it is an exact word for word answer to my exact question.
Wow.
And I sat there and I was just stunned. I had to read it over and over. I said, do you want me to be faithful to do this Mandela thing, or do you want, because I'd really rather go get rich. A faithful man will abound in blessing, but he that hastens to be rich. So then on the opposite page is another passage that's highlighted. And if you go through the entire Bible, Proverbs, there's only one other passage in this entire book, this Bible specifically, that's highlighted. So I've happened to manage to open directly to this page, which had two highlighted scriptures. The other one is a mission statement for my ministry.
Oh, wow.
Every word of God is pure. He's a shield to those who put their trust in him. Do not add to his words, lest he rebuke you and you be found a liar. So that's a Mandela scripture right on the other page, highlighted by my mother 20 years ago. So I closed the book and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm back in it.
Here I am.
Yeah. So
well, God would find you anyways. It's not like we can run. And I mean, we know that we'll be rewarded in heaven and all the things, but this is when you're going through this and you are, even if it seems cool or whatever, or people think podcasters make money, I have news for people. You don't. Authors don't make money either.
Yeah.
Like we are doing this strictly, like he's not pouring out his soul, talking about his family trouble, and I'm not talking about all my trouble and my childhood. And my mom even told me yesterday, she said, Heidi, you gotta not tell the whole story because it's so much, and what if people start saying bad things to you? I said, "Mom, I just don't care." "Well, you're my daughter, I care, and I
Yeah.
don't want it to be bad or sad." And I said, "Mom, if it helps like one person, then whatever. I just don't care anymore, but I used to, and it doesn't matter when you become and we're not special. This could happen to you tomorrow. Be careful what you ask for. You go asking God for knowledge, prayer, and get in your Bible and studying and journaling. You're going to get some wake up too. He calls you, like you put yourself out there and say, God, I'll do anything. He might just take you up on it. And you have to remember that this is like a mission,
Yes.
and we're just trying to help people. So if you disagree, cool. If you agree, great. But at least study. At least put the effort into, if you want to prove somebody wrong, like what John did into the office of the pastors, you go with the knowledge. You can't just go in there and be like, well, you're a bad person, so I don't like you. Because I've had that done to me, and so is he.
Right.
And no, we're not. You go with evidence to say, look, do this. This is this and that, and trajectory and math and scriptures and things and pictures, and it doesn't matter. If you're not going to believe it, you're not going to believe it. If you love this world, then you're probably not going to hear it. We're not, there's no gains to be made from this,
No.
really.
No. I mean, other than eternal treasure, Jesus
Yes.
promised us that if you throw a party, don't invite your friends who can pay you back, but rather invite the sick, the lame, and the halt, and then your reward will be in heaven. So
Yes.
we're on a different track by walking in obedience, which is fine, but it's not, anything that is pleasant. A lot of times you get to be with him along the way, and so that for that reason you wouldn't trade it for anything. But
No.
it is what it is, and I do have to run. I got a 3-hour
That's okay.
thing I'm going to do tonight,
And
and I got to finish getting ready. So,
and with that, I think it was a perfect place to end anyways. I would love to have you back for a deep dive on
please,
Mandela.
yes,
I would
yes,
love that.
yes.
John, will you let our people know one more time how to find your book and where to find you?
Yep. We're on Wakeuporelse on YouTube, and we're also at wakeuporelse.com. And we have a new podcast that's up with about 15 episodes, and that's the Conspiracy Theorist Survival Guide podcast. And then the book is called The Conspiracy Theorist Survival Guide. You can get that on Amazon. You can find it on my webpage at Get the Book. And then, I'm going to do a talk tonight after God spoke to me and recruited me back in. I said, okay, well, now that I'm doing this, God, what do you want me to say to your people? And I heard the voice of the Lord say, tell my people not to trust in princes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the title of my message tonight, which is on YouTube.
Amazing.
At 7 p.m.
7 p.m. All right.
Yes,
Well, I look forward to speaking to you again. I loved our talk.
I did too.
Anytime you want to chat about any of the stuff we suffer through together, you don't have to cry alone. I cry a lot too.
That's awesome.
So, yes, sister in Christ here, and we will just keep doing the good fight. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
I'll send you a free promo for the audio version of the book so you can listen to it.
Oh, awesome. I would love that. Thank you so much. And I will put all the links in the show notes for the book, guys, so you can find it.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Yes.
God bless. Thanks for listening.
God
Thanks,
bless.
Heidi. You bet.
Yes. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.